Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Saturday series on inclusion in the arts. My name is Amy Levesque, and I am the Executive Director of Inclusive Theater of Western New York. And joining us this Saturday is Amy Teal. I also have Queen Robinson and Jessica Levesque, both here from Inclusive Theater, and hopefully we'll have other folks joining in as we go along. So thank you, Amy, for being here. We're super excited to have you. This is exciting for us. Just to give a little background before we start our conversation, Amy teaches both private voice lessons and the sophomore and junior voice classes at Niagara University. She earned her Bachelor of Music in Vocal Performance and a Master of Music in Music Education with New York Teaching Certification from the Eastman School of Music. Amy enjoys a busy and diverse teaching and performing career in the Western New York region. As a performer, and I loved this because this is totally you. This is like you vibe, right? Like, so we were joking before. I met Amy on Facebook. This is our first time ever having face-to-face interaction, which is super awesome. But when I heard this, I knew this was you. So as a performer, she's been described as delightful in her absolutely rock-solid performance from Buffalo Rising, and perfect in voice and comic timing from the Buffalo News. And in the time that I've known you, like, you're both of those things. So that's pretty awesome.
Thank you so much.
You've had a lot of experience with places like Buffalo Philharmonic, Opera Lights. I have a lot of friends involved in Opera Lights. Cheektowaga Symphony, just a long list of folks, which is so super cool. And maybe you can talk about some of those at some point. You've also done some work on the musical theater stage, performing roles at Art Park, the Riviera, Lancaster Opera House, and O'Connell and Company. As an educator, she believes in creating strong relationships with her students and in fostering mutual respect. She was honored to be nominated by a student and included in Who's Who Among America's Teachers Music Honors Edition. Not a surprise there either, as a teacher who made a difference. Her students have won contests and placed in competitions such as Classical Singer Magazine, Golden Voices of America, BPO Idol, the 10,000 Maniacs Tour, and NBC's The Voice. In addition to her work at Niagara University, Amy directs plays and musical for Lewiston Porter School District and owns and operates Teal's Niagara Theater and Music at the Niagara Arts and Cultural Center in Niagara Falls. So welcome. We're very happy to have you, as Chris is also coming in right now.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
Thank you, Amy, for taking time today and being, because it's Saturday, it's summer, it's also really hot. Yeah. We have a lot of things we're trying to finish and get done. But thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. You come with so much experience and awesomeness. We are just in awe of your accomplishments. So thank you. This is great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So basically, we just have a conversation for the next hour. We talk about inclusion in the arts. We talk about the things that are important to us. So I will jump in with the first question, if you're good with that. Sure. So my first question for you is, how and when did you start working in the theater? We have a little background, but if you want to give us.
Sure. I mean, obviously, I was involved with high school with the musicals. Then did a little bit with what was the Niagara Falls Little Theater when I was still in high school, which is now, oh my gosh, the name is slipping me, Niagara Regional Players, that's what it is, NRTG, right? And then about, goodness, all the years start to run together. I want to say at least 5 or 6 years ago, of course, you know, I had done opera and things like that with the Buffalo Philharmonic, and Hansel and Gretel performance that we had done, and but then musical theater started. We did Les Mis with Theater in the Mist with Joey Buhecker directing that about, I think it was about five or 6 years ago now, and it was such a fun experience because, you know, we got to do it as a family. So my husband was involved. My husband's also an actor. He was actually already nominated a couple years back. He played Johnny when they did American Idiot couple years back, so he got a nomination for that. So it's just like
ART?
At ART, yeah. So that was just like, and they won Best Ensemble actually that year at the Arties too.
Great show. It's a great
perform and everything. So, so you know, it's just been like, it's our family's thing. You know, some families like to, you know, go out on the boat, go fishing, but our family, it's like all been about theater. I have 3 kids. And my oldest daughter now is 18. I have a 16-year-old daughter, and then my son. So Les Mis we all did together. And then I think the following year, Jeff Coyle directed for TITM and did Fiddler on the Roof. And our whole family was also in that. So it's just been like, it's a really amazing way to spend time as a family and also still get a chance to get out and make friends, but you make family friends, and you're introduced to so many different people. And I just think like it was such an amazing experience for our kids as they've been growing up, because they had this like extended family of what they felt were aunties and uncles that cared for them, that could mentor them and guide them. And it also did open their eyes to people of all different backgrounds, so that they're comfortable in the world where they can look at everybody individually and not feel like, oh, well, they're different than me, which is what theater, I think, does in general anyway. But, starting, I think, so young that it was just like part of their lives to be exposed to so many different people. And it's just not even something they have to think about anymore, because it's just like, oh, well, we grew up this way. And then, so when my oldest daughter was in 8th grade, as you discussed about with your being a mother first, and you and I chatted about this a little bit on Facebook, like any parent, I wanted to continue to share theater with them and get involved. So they had a middle school musical that year. And hello, we have Dallas joining.
This is Dallas. He's our artistic director, and Janelle back here just came in with Chris.
Hi, Janelle. Nice to meet
you.
He
also has acted with Chris with Inclusive.
Very nice to meet everyone. So I reached out, as a volunteer, and got involved, and that's how I got involved at Newport. So they brought me on, and I had been, there working on the musicals and then the high school plays, and of course brought my husband in to help with that. So he kind of got roped into doing all the technical stuff.
He was volunteered.
and my papa too. It's kind of like becomes this family affair.
That's great.
So that year, which, let's see, it would have been about 4 years ago now, after that experience of, being able to kind of be on the part that's helping create the theater for my own children, my husband and I said, gee, it would be really great to like do something like this over the summer. And so that's really how Teal's Niagara Theater was born, because we said, let's just do our own thing. Let's start something. I mean, with all of our background, my husband has his degree in arts for children from SUNY Brockport. He's also a teacher. So, it just worked. It just seemed right. So we started TNT with just really him and myself, and some of my former students that I brought along who, as they were growing up through theater, wanted to be involved. And my papa Dave, who has just always there for me. So he kind of came on, and if I had a tech issue or a problem, he would research it and figure it out. And so our first production was just a summer only production. We did Shrek Junior.
Oh my God, I loved it.
Yeah, and it was great. It was just a magical experience. And as you guys know with theater, it just took one experience, and it was my papa, who had never really been a part. I mean, he always supported me, growing up, and would come see me perform and whatnot, but he'd never actually been a part of the whole experience of birthing a show, as I'll call it.
They are children. They are.
And he was at this point. And he came downstairs the opening night. We all circled up, and of course, I gave my pep talk, my speech, and all the kids were holding hands and crying and all excited. And he just said that changed him. It made him realize how theater helps bring people together, and also what this does for children, to help them to create, bonds with each other, to give them a place when they maybe don't feel that they belong in other places, especially as adolescents, which is such a difficult time. At that point, we were pretty much focusing on most of the kids in the program were middle school age. It just happened that way because they were friends of my own kids that had come on. Now we've expanded to younger and older, but at that point, and, it just inspired him to want to continue, to bring this to his community and be a part of it. So we did it for summers only, and then that branched out into a year-round program 2 years ago, where we had parents and families saying, well, why are we only doing this over the summer? It's such an amazing experience you're providing. So we reached out to the NAC and ended up getting his face there and started doing year-round programming. And, we were going strong. We'd done two shows we do one in the fall and one in the spring. And then we do our summer show. So 3 shows year round. We try to bring the kids out and do other performances in the community, concerts and things like that. And then interestingly enough, yeah. And then kind of as an offshoot of that, I've talked about my papa. He was so moved by the experience, and that he's just been my right-hand man through all of this, that I said one day, gee, Papa, it'd be so great if we had our own theater. And next thing I know, he comes to me and he's like, he lives in Youngstown. We're up in the North Towns here. I live in Lewiston and he's in Youngstown. And he said, there's the old Post Theater inside of Fort Niagara. And it's been a labor of love on his part for the past 2 years. And he has just done it. 2 years or 3 now. He just walked in. He said it's almost been 4 years. Wow, time flies. But they're moving forward, and they are working at creating a space. They've gotten a new roof put in, and they're putting seats in and working to have the Niagara Post Theater, which will be hopefully a theater that Teal's Niagara Theater can be at, but it's a theater that's open to all groups in the area. It's going to have about 250 seats and 260. I tried to get him to come on and talk a little.
Come on and talk a little.
I know. But so there's just, again, this opportunity, for the whole theater community to continue to share things throughout Western New York. And, we're hoping it'll be a home base for us, but also to include, people from all over the region and do some intimate theater there as well. So yeah.
That target demographic are those kids too, because often that's the one that's jumped over, right? Like they either have the school theater or adult theater. There doesn't tend to be that middle ground, and you guys fill that void, and that is so important.
Yeah. One of the things about it that it's meant so much to me, and you're right, we loved our time with Theater in the Mist, but time and time again, I found not only with my own kids, but with their friends, that they would be frustrated sometimes because they would be like, always feel like, well, no matter what, I'm never going to be able to hold down a lead because, I'm not 20, I'm not 30, I don't have the experience, I'm going to be in the chorus. And that's a wonderful thing. The ensemble is a wonderful thing. You learn so much. But it's obviously a whole different game when you have the responsibility of being a lead role. And so I'm so happy that we can provide that, where, we have kids. I think our youngest has been 5 all the way up to 18. Right. And, within that demographic, we've had kids always, have the leads and pull down these shows. And, it's been great. We won the, and I know a lot of people scoff at it, but I'm like a proud mom, so I'll talk about it. We won the Broadway World Award, actually. That's
important. I'm no scoffing. That's a big deal.
A couple years ago, we were nominated in my cast that we did Rock of Ages, which is such a fun show, but it was the middle school edition, so it was tamed down. And they were nominated and won, and I said, good for you. So I think it's important that, when we talk about not discriminating, we can talk about not discriminating against ages, young people either, or saying that like, well, you're young, so you're not going to be able to do this. I always tell the kids the exact opposite. I always tell them, I don't look at you and see your age. I don't look at you and see, oh, you're just a kid. I believe you can be as professional as anyone. And, it's what you put into it. So yeah, we've had some really good success. And our very last production before COVID, we did Disney's Frozen Junior, and it was just so well received. Do you know Rachel Olszewski? Have you spoken with Rachel?
I have not, no.
The head there of the program at the NAC, and she came in and watched it one of the nights, and she looked at me and had tears streaming down her face, and she said, "This is everything that I've dreamed of us doing here at the NAC," because the NAC has tried and has wanted to also bring in live theater for so long, but the facility, of course, it's old, it's outdated. It's the old Niagara Falls High School, if any of you aren't familiar. And so the theater, before our company came in, it just hadn't really been used for live theater in years. There were some issues. Sound is always an issue. It's a very live space. Therefore, articulation is difficult. The audience could hear beautiful voices, but not necessarily understand our words. So that was an issue to overcome. And then lighting was non-existent. And again, my amazing papa researched and did all this wonderful work, and actually came and got us some lighting put in so that we could perform there. And I hope I'm not going off on a tangent.
No, this is why we do what we do. That's what I said. Like, we always have questions, but we always go on and other stuff. So we're good. This is good.
Well, I feel like as theater peeps, these are things we all understand and can relate to,
I heard lights and sound, and I don't know if anybody saw it. I was like, oh, like that struggle is real.
Yeah, and just like making your space work. But again, I think that like speaks to the determination. When you have a passion for something, you don't let it hold you back. And we had a passion for this, and we knew it was an important thing that we were doing, and we wanted to make it work. We also had really no wing space, no fly space, but despite all of that, the show went on, and we've made it work. So
that's super exciting. And I know, like, especially with our group, I know we have a wide range, but I've been looking at some scripts for a theater company, and also externally we had a call for scripts come out, and typically plays are written 20 and 30-year-olds. So it eliminates virtually everybody, under 20 and everybody over 35. And, that's great. I mean, they all have their parts, but our world doesn't look like that. Like, we don't just have 20 to 30. So one of the things that we do, and it kind of bumps to one of the other questions, is like this idea of casting non-traditional people in roles that were initially casted for someone else.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Yeah. But it runs the gamut. So we have the age thing, right? Like, but then also, it's so bizarre. We'll say, okay, so the mailman, we're going to put somebody in here, and he happens to be in a wheelchair. And people look at us, and I'm like, people in wheelchairs have jobs. Like,
right.
Assuming that they are not working.
Right.
That leads to one of my questions, if I can jump in.
Please do.
I have 3 questions, actually. One dad question, one practical question, and then one technical question. So I should tell her what? Oh, Janelle says we should tell you that we're also in Lewiston, and we know Marnie Aldro.
Oh,
I see that you know. Marnie, actually, up until the beginning of the summer here, I was taking voice lessons from.
Oh, fantastic.
From Marnie.
Marnie, I love Marnie. Obviously, we've known her for years.
Ginny, and like
she worked with us at Theater in the Mist.
Like when you mentioned Shrek Jr. and all that, and
yes,
so
she works with me at Niagara University, or did, but now she's working at Stella.
Right. Yeah. So that it's interesting, like the connection, because we're local. We're local too. So, but I have a question, because one thing you mentioned was. Well, I'm going to ask my dad. Can I back up and just ask my dad question first?
Sure.
My dad question is, how do you, because we have a 13-year-old daughter who was supposed to be in Mary Poppins, and then the pandemic hit and everything. So, but how do you get kids to practice? That's my dad question. Like she got her viola for over the summer, and I know you're friends with Tony Petroselli too, probably. And Tony called me and said, "Hey, does Hope want her viola over the summer?" I'm like, "She does," and I'm like telling her, "You gotta practice if I get it," and and she's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna practice, but I'm 13," and and all that,
Well,
how do you keep them motivated?
Obviously, every child is different. I mean, so that's tricky without knowing your daughter. I mean, I would always, in my own parenting, I try to do it in a positive approach first,
Right. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Especially when it comes to anything involving performing. You don't want to be like, well, don't you don't want to make it a punishment where you're going to punish them if they don't practice, because that takes the joy away from it.
Right.
But there's that flip side too of like understanding that, if you want to get good at something, then there is a commitment.
Well, right. And that's, yeah.
So I mean, if you feel like is your daughter, you said?
Yeah, Hope.
If you feel like you can have a conversation with her, I would maybe ask her, well, what is it that's keeping you from practicing?
What do I need to do to put you into this practice room today?
Yeah, I mean, I really believe in putting responsibility back on them. Let her figure it out. Let her figure out, like, why aren't you practicing? Do you still like this instrument? Do you want to improve? Have you thought about why you're not practicing? And have you thought about a way that you could fit practicing in? And really make her answer those questions for you.
No, I know you're speaking my language, but not necessarily.
I mean, it just depends. I just know with my own I have 3 kids that I try to avoid power struggles with them really on anything, because it's just so exhausting for us as parents. And it usually backfires anyway, I find.
I try to avoid them too, but she's my daughter and it happens,
Oh, well, believe me.
Both
I'm not saying it doesn't happen on my end as well, but, I guess that would be my advice, is just, to have a conversation with her about it and then say, I'm here to support you. What could I do to help you to make this happen? Do you want me to remind you that, okay, now it's time to practice? Do you want me to set a timer? Do you want us to?
It's funny too, because sometimes, and I've actually had this conversation with a number of other parents, that like I might be able to get your kids on board and you might be able to get my daughter on board in a way that I could never get my daughter on board, or you might get your kids. You know what I'm saying?
All of us as parents, I think, can relate to this. Those of us who have kids. Yes, so true. I cannot tell you how many colleagues I have who say, I can't, and me too, I can't teach my own kids.
Right.
When it comes to private one-on-one, if I try to offer advice or teach them, it turns into Mom, why did you? So I send them to my friends, and my friends send their kids to me. And
so I'm going to move on from my dad question, because I really want to ask this one, especially since you were just doing some renovation of the space close by here. How do we get, like, I'm a wheelchair user. I don't know if you can tell from this, because I block it out.
I can't tell from that, but I just saw some, yeah.
Right.
Yes.
But I'm a wheelchair user. So one of the hurdles that I find quite often, and I know, Amy, you and I have talked a lot about this, when you kind of lose space and then you have to kind of figure out another space, and if you have people in wheelchairs, then it's a problem, is that stages are almost always inaccessible. So tell me how we begin to change that? Like, how can, like building a ramp is not the end of, it's not simple, but it's also not always difficult. But how do we make those connections in a way that people recognize the importance of the diversity, to the point of, well, if we want Chris to be involved, or anybody else in a wheelchair to be involved, then we have to have a ramp, because otherwise he can't get on stage.
Yeah. I mean, I think this discussion is how you start it, is just making people aware. Thankfully, we had, I believe she won the Tony, didn't she? Ellie Stoker. So that really gained national attention, that, people in wheelchairs are doing musical theater, and, that why wouldn't they? And so, what you're running into, I think, in a lot of cases, is buildings that have been pre-existing and obviously weren't accommodated. But you're correct, you know, new builds, as they're going into or renovating
Or renovation, sure.
You know, that certainly needs to be a consideration. And I think, you know, just you're bringing it to people's attention is a huge start. And for me, I think that would be really important in this discussion
Right.
that we're all having.
Right. Then the other thing, and you mentioned her already, as it's interesting. One of the things Marnie and I really struggled with, not struggle isn't the right word, but we battled this the entire time. I've been taking lessons for about a year, and that's coming to an end now because of her job change and everything. But for the time that we were together, one of the things that was challenging, because I'm a wheelchair user, is with singing in particular, is oxygen, having enough. I mean, I speak very well, but when you're singing and like having the breath control and being able to get the chances to get a breath in, to be able to, and sometimes it's just, okay, grab them where you can, kind of thing.
Yeah, sure.
You know? But have you ever worked with anybody with disabilities in a way that?
Yes. Oh yes, definitely. Yes. So you're asking how to help to get better breath for singing?
Better breath, yeah. Get more oxygen so you can hold notes and things like that and be able to sing. Like,
right.
I'm a musician
well,
too.
I mean, I would say again, without knowing your specific details,
right.
It would be hard for me to give, you know, it's not a one size fits all answer.
No,
it really just depends, you know, the way that the human anatomy works with the breathing system. Obviously, it's going to involve use of the diaphragm, the abdominal muscles,
right.
And the intercostal muscles in between your ribs.
Right. But I'm sitting down for one thing.
Right, but people sing fine sitting down. I'm actually, one of the things I do to have people to actually engage their breath even more and to feel a lower breath is to lay flat on their back and sing. So sitting down, or, you know, that shouldn't necessarily impact the ability. Actually, for breath control and breath management, a lot of it does have to do with the muscles in between the ribs, the rib cage, the intercostal muscles. So, you know, that again would just depend on your personal circumstance of whether or not, you know, you feel that you have the ability to control those muscles. And I would just say to find, you know, with her, work on exercises that can help you with that. Right. To sustain. I'm sure she's done like hissing exercises with you.
We've done a lot of it. It's interesting though that you mentioned, and I'll let other people talk, but it's interesting that you mentioned laying on your back, because I find I don't get quite as much oxygen when I'm laying on my back, because, you know, blocking my lungs. But then yesterday I'm working on a song where I'm actually singing, which I try, like, I'm taking lessons. I want to get better, but I'm not comfortable with my voice just yet, you know. But I was laying down and I was singing this piece that I'm working on, and Janelle said, maybe you should record it laying down because it sounds more even, you know. Yeah. And I'm like,
how you sound to yourself, especially laying down, is going to be different than how the rest of us, you know, around you are receiving it. But typically, you know, the laying down just helps singers to ground the breath,
right,
to give you more control over the release of the breath.
But I thought it was interesting just because it just came up, like we literally had that conversation yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, anyway.
Well, thank you for your question.
Thanks.
I have a few questions.
I just wanted to say real quick before you do that, I thought Chris meant he had a question for her dad.
Oh, no, gotcha.
Waiting for it. I was.
We'll get there. Just not right now, but we'll get there.
Okay, sorry, Dallas.
So I also work with kids. So I coach soccer and tennis for kids, and I hear this a lot with teachers and coaches, where when you're working with kids, you're able to see, like the growth in kids, like the progression that kids see in a specific activity. Not really doing it with theater. What kind of growth do you see in working with kids in a theater type environment? Like, what does that look like?
So as you're asking me that question, I'm actually holding back tears. I'm choked up. I've had so many experiences. Sorry. I miss them. I miss being able to work with them and to see that growth. And I kept thinking and hoping that, we'd be back to it by now. As you can tell, I get very attached. What is growth in your cast members, in your company members? And, sorry, it just, it's hard when we can't all meet in person and see and give hugs and all those things that, we do. But, to concisely answer his question, growth obviously is individual. And I was saying in some of the kids, I see it in their actual performing, and some of them it's just in their confidence, and it's just the kid who like always talks like this and you can't get him. And then finally they project their voice and you're like, oh, yes, or the kid who's tried to hear the note, but they're always off. And then they finally get the note. And you're like, you did it. All of those things that, make being a part of a company. And it's not just me, it's like the whole cast, they cheer each other on. And it's just like, that's the part of theater that we all love. And that's the extended family that theater is,
Yeah, and it's just those little things. Like I see it in tennis and soccer, where I had a kid a couple years ago where the first couple practices he was afraid to touch the ball, like it was gonna give him coronavirus. But then a few times, once he got used to it, he was the first one to get up on defense, get up into the other person, try to kick the ball, and like those moments where you can look on their faces and you can see like, oh, and you can see in the kid's face like, I got it. Yes. And it's just those little moments that you just see written all over them, like, I got it, like I hit the tennis ball right, or I got that note right, or I got that line right.
And what you did for him, that'll stay with him forever. And you might underestimate it as just, oh, that was just a little thing. I just said a kind word. I said, you can do this. And to you, that might have just been a small thing. But, you'll have students come back to you and years later and say, you told me I could. And I've, everything I've done is because you believed in me. And, don't ever underestimate, how one person can make the difference in someone else's life. And I always try to approach things as much as possible as a director with positivity, and not, because I've worked with all types of directors. I've worked with people who use threats or punishment or, I'm the director and you'll do what I say. But I'm definitely the type of person who, I respond better to directors who build me up and are positive, and especially because I work with children, that's the way I try to be with them, is to use encouragement and, make them proud of what they're doing and, to take ownership of what they're doing. And, I think we all want to be in a positive environment, because theater can become toxic. Theater groups can become toxic if you're not careful. So as a leader, it's important that you lead with positivity, and that one of our hard and fast rules in our group is that, we will not tolerate bullying or, any kind of misconduct where we're treating each other poorly. We nip that in the bud right away if we even have an inkling of it. Because it's a family.
And have you ever had kids show up who weren't really engaged in theater? Because like I know growing up theater was like, ew, that kind of thing.
Well, our program's a little different. We do accept everyone that wants to come. I do not receive any funding because I am not considered a not-for-profit. So most of the kids who come, I would say, want to be there because their parents actually have to pay a tuition for them to participate. However, sometimes maybe the parents are the ones who've pushed it a little bit. I guess this was kind of my theme of the interview, but I try to take don't we all want to be treated as individuals? So I try to take every person as an individual. And if I feel or sense that they're not comfortable or that they're not into it, and then we have a discussion and I say, well, what are you comfortable doing? You know, where can I put you that will excite you? You know, sometimes with adolescent boys who maybe, you know, singing's not their thing or the dancing's not their thing, but they love to be funny, you know, so I'll find something for them where, you know, they can have the walk on roll and do the funny thing and then they're done. And that might just be the big moment for them, but they're thrilled with that. So I just think it's all about having conversations and, you know, getting to know each individual person's strengths and comfort.
And then, sorry, I was late coming on, so I didn't really catch the beginning of the conversation. But you were talking
Lucky
about...
for you, it doesn't matter. Who knows where that is right now? So,
so you were talking about your experience and your knowledge of everything and how that inspired you to want to get started and start your own thing. Even with your experience and your knowledge and wanting to get something started on your own, what were some of the challenges that you came across, even with the sort of, I guess, advantages that you had already intact?
Well, I think, every show has unique challenges. I mean, finances are always a challenge for all of us. You know, we always want to do things bigger and better. But ultimately, you know, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you can put on a show, you know, in your backyard and still have, you know, great experience. So, you know, we just kind of try to take each show, you know, as it comes, and make each one bigger and better. So technical challenges, you know, are there, and financial challenges of just, I hate like I just said, I don't get funding, you know, from grants or anything like that because I haven't applied for a not-for-profit status. And so, you know, it's always still been really important to me that if I have someone who wants to do my program that maybe can't afford it and that money was an issue, that we find a way for them to participate. So, you know, that's a challenge, right? Is how am I inclusive? How do I include people who this might financially not work for? So we have tried to get creative. We have, you know, sometimes had students who we've said, you know, I know that finances aren't going to work for you, but, you know, I also need help like building sets, or I need help, you know, with a lot of the technical work that goes into the show, or doing costuming and searching for props. And so sometimes I'm able to work with people in that way and like basically give them a job that they kind of do a little bit of work to help them knock some of the money off of what it would cost them to be a part. Sweat equity, I guess that's what we call it, right? If they are willing to put in sweat equity, you know, so that they can participate, because it just, and I, you know, I work with parents typically in our program, you know, it's younger people. So the parents are the ones trying to figure out how to pay for them to participate. So, you know, we'll work with parents, you know, to try to spread out, you know, the tuition payments to make it affordable. You know, that's probably the biggest challenge, is just finding a way to, I still have to pay my bills, right? To pay for the rights for the show and to rent the theater space and to buy the costumes and the sets and the props and, you know, all the things that go into it. You know, we've never actually written our own shows, so I've always had to pay for royalties and to bring in a person to do sound and lights and all that stuff. So, you know, challenges in that way, but I don't know, we just kind of always kind of work around it. And I think it's a challenge, you know, as I talked about being positive, and I try to stay positive, it can be a challenge, you know, to keep the kids motivated. I mean, I do have something to add about challenge, because keeping kids motivated in the way that I do my program can be difficult, because we, believe it or not, I still think this is crazy. Every time we get to the finished product and the show comes together so well, I think about this long, you know, birthing process, and I go, how did we do this? Because we take anybody that wants to be in the show. We have a range of ages, and do you know we only rehearse one night a week? we only rehearse on Sundays from between 4 and 8. And we do that for like our winter show. We start in September and then we put the show on in December. So it's like a very long spread out period of time to be working on just one show. But those kids only come every Sunday between the hours of 4 and 8. And obviously, if they're younger or they're just in the chorus, we have them come for just like 4 to 6 and then go home. So I think, retention is an issue, trying to remember what we've done and get a momentum going. And so I guess that's a little crazy. That definitely is a challenge. But they do it. They always pull it off, which amazes me. We do meet every night of the week once we get into like the week leading up to the show, obviously for tech and everything. And we add in a few extra rehearsals the week before. But yeah, pretty much we mount these shows with just one rehearsal a week. It's crazy.
That just gave me chills. Like, I don't know. I would, like, the anxiety of Tech Week alone, like.
And that is a challenge too. I'm sorry. See, now I'm remembering all my challenges now. I guess I try not to focus on the challenge part. It's like when it's like having a baby, right?
Forget. Yeah.
It's like when you're holding the baby, you're like, oh, you're so cute. You forget everything, the 9 months of hell that you had
that you've just gone through and the labor.
Yeah, and then being, running your own theater company is a lot the same way. But, one of the challenges I face is it's really just me and my family. I mean, I finally have gotten to the point because I really just saw the toll that it takes. I mean, my husband has a full-time job. He's a teacher. And then he would spend, nights and weekends doing all the things that are involved. And so we all realize how important it is to actually have a staff that has job. I mean, I'm the director, I'm the producer, I'm the publicist, I'm the costumer. I type the playbill, so little by little, I realized like that is too much. That is a challenge, a huge challenge. And, I also realized like I have parents who want to be a part of this. And like, they have said to me multiple times, like, Amy, just ask us, just say like, I need help. And they are willing to, be the ones who order the cast t-shirts or arrange the cast party or.
Okay. But in defense of that, that if you do it, it gets done.
Yeah.
So I mean, not that it's not that you shouldn't be asking, but like you learn to adapt and get it finished because
I think it's hard to explain it sometimes when you are the one who does it, to slow down, to like train somebody to do it.
It's hard.
That's a challenge, so yeah, like finding the time to like allow yourself to include other people in the process. And again, I keep saying money, but like also finances. Like I don't want to raise my price, right? I charge as little as I possibly can to basically cover the costs. And so that's why I've had to do all these jobs, because, if I am bringing in people to do all those jobs who I'm paying, then certainly, my costs go up and then I have to charge more. So, theater is expensive, and, I wish that, and it's even harder now, obviously, with what's happening with the pandemic, but, I wish that we got more support from government and community, and we do, you have the core group that's always going to support, but there can definitely be more. I wish that theater and arts got the attention, obviously, that sports gets, Not to pick one over the other, but.
But we know what theater does. We see it in the work that we do. My dissertation research was looking at how writing groups empower people with disabilities. People's stories are told all the time by somebody else, and taking things back and getting that agency is important. And that's what's happening with the kids in your group, with the folks that come to Inclusive. It really is an event of empowerment that, unless you're in it, because, okay, so not for nothing, like you were very emotional. Like this was the weekend we did Shakespeare in the parking lot last year, and we sold out every show. And to see, now we didn't have one rehearsal a week, but we had 5 days a week in 90 degrees, and we were all ready to kill each other, family or not.
Yeah.
But to see the work that went into it and then to see that product. That's why we do what we do.
Absolutely.
And it's heart-wrenching because we should have been there this summer. We had plans for shows, and we keep doing this, Zoom bomb be damned.
Yeah.
We're going to keep on doing the best that we can, but it is hard not being able to see people and to hug people, but also know that it's working, the power that you have with theater.
Yeah.
It's
well, you too. Right back at you. And that's the thing. It's like trying to keep your head in a good mental place to keep doing it, because I am a pretty positive person most of the time, but I definitely have days where it's hard. Yeah, but it's nice to just talk to other people who feel the same way,
which is why this show kind of came right, like that was because we knew that we weren't in connection like we were. And you don't need a stage to do theater. It helps, but we've learned to adapt. We know, like Chris was talking about accessibility. I can't tell you the times that we've been invited to look at a space, 100% accessible, come on in. There's 4 stairs leading into the building, or you can get in the front of the house, you can't get to the back of the house. I'm like, well, just put a ramp. You can't do that. So we're used to making adaptation. And so when this all happened with COVID, it was, obviously it's just as terrible for everybody here. Some of us have not left our homes in months, right? But we knew how to adapt because that's all we know how to do.
Yeah.
But then to hear people say, well, that's not really theater. That's horseshit. Theater is many. We'll have a tea date, let me tell you.
Okay, because I'm like, well, why are people, I never understand why people think it's their business.
It's a tool for education. It's a place where we learn through discomfort. It's a place for dialogue and community. The other stuff is just geography. Would we like to be on stage together? Absolutely. I think everybody in this company would concur. It's something we miss the most, that human interaction. But right now, this is what we have, and it works, and it's okay. We just had 150 people in our room, so it's working.
Yeah,
That was hilarious. But it is working, and it is important. And, I get to see some of my favorite people in the world. And we're here together. And you're there. You're here. We finally get, and it's already 9 o'clock. This is how these things it goes fast because it's something that we need. And it's important, and the work we do is important. So thank you for all that you do, because you're changing kids before they're even out of school. You're making that for their life.
Thank you.
And we know what it does.
I feel blessed, and I just wanted to throw this in because what you said reminded me. I have had I have had parents who've contacted me about their child who's had disabilities, and well, will you take them? And they're always seem so grateful when I say, of course, but it just doesn't even dawn on me why there would be places that wouldn't, but I've had parents even say to me, this means so much to my daughter. I have one young lady that's done show after show after show with us, and her mom said, that they won't even let her in the high school musical. And I said,
it's very funny you say that, because, and Jess can confirm this, anytime she wanted to be in a performance at school, because she has autism, what it was, well, you can be in the back. We need people snapping and clapping. Ensemble work isn't terrible, but when you relegate somebody to a background position so they're out of your hair, it's extraordinarily problematic. And we run into that a lot, particularly with people with disabilities. They don't want to cast Dorothy in a wheelchair. They don't want to cast X, Y, and Z as a person with Masood Zaid. I will never forget. She's a comedian, and she's got, I believe, cerebral palsy and something else. Her entire life wanted to be an actress. They would never cast her. Finally, senior year of high school, and she tells a story better than I ever could, so check her out. But senior year of high school, they have a show. The lead is a woman with CP. She's like, I was born for this. I was made for this. She auditioned. She didn't get the role. And she said, I don't understand. This was my friggin' role. There could not have been another. And the teacher's response to her was, we thought you would fall. And she was dumbfounded. Like, I guess, you know, and she's a comedian. She goes, I think if you really wanted to be a method actor, you'd want me falling. Like, that's awesome. Like, that will get it over the edge for you. But it had nothing to do with that. They looked at her as a liability rather than an asset. She's on General Hospital. She's a comedian. There was just an 88.
Did she do a TED Talk?
Yeah, she did a TED Talk.
I saw her TED Talk. It was awesome.
But if she would have listened to the people that said no, which is what we hear often from folks that come to Inclusive, and you also are hearing this from some of the kids, she never, ever would have tried to reach a goal and a dream that she had. And that's sad to me.
Yeah. Oh,
It's
absolutely.
remarkable.
Absolutely. You know, every single person has something special that they bring to this world, and you don't know. I think we all can underestimate ourselves, you know, but we think we don't, well, what am I, you know, but like every person has something that might be the one thing that another person needed, you know.
Yes.
So there needs to be opportunities for everyone to share that.
Absolutely. Well, it is already almost 9:10. Thank you for being here. It's been so exciting to have you. It's been fun.
It's been so exciting.
Inaugural Zoom bombing, like that was awesome.
More than we knew.
I know, more than we knew. But it was super fun. And I'm so glad that we officially got to talk, because this has been great.
Yeah, it has been.
And what I'm going to do really quickly, once I hit the record, well, anyway, next week's guest is to be determined. We'll let you guys know that as soon as we have it, 8 o'clock next week, same time. Thank you, Amy, for being here.
Thank you. It was so nice to meet you all.
It was nice meeting you as well. It's so exciting.